At the ancient and mysterious heart of Nordic culture, long nights occupy the longest light of the year. When the sun sinks early into the horizon, boundless darkness sweeps across the vast coniferous forests and frozen villages like a tide. In this near-perpetual darkness, mortals always breed unspeakable fear and the torment of wakefulness in their deepest hearts. It is also against this historical background that an ancient figure known as Solitude, the Sandman, began to walk quietly at the continent's edge. His original divine office did not come from the prominence of Olympus but was born from mankind's most primitive, humble desire for peace. Solitude, the Sandman, was not tall in stature, and he always wore a silk tunic of soft texture that made no sound. The clothing's color was like the ever-changing aurora borealis at twilight, emitting a faint, soothing soft light. In his hand, he carried a small leather pouch that seemed never to fill, holding golden microsand refined under the Nordic aurora for thousands of years. Whenever night fell and village lights extinguished one by one, Ole would pace with steps as light as a cat over those snow-covered rooftops. He slid down chimneys or through closed windows to reach those unable to sleep due to cold, hunger, or fear. His gaze was serene and calm, untainted by worldly impurity, with only endless compassion flowing deep within. He would extend slender fingers to pinch a smidgen of fine golden sand from the pouch and, with extreme gentleness, slowly sprinkle it upon those tense eyelids. That movement was as light as a gentle spring breeze brushing through dried branches and leaves, causing wakefulness's torment to vanish instantly. However, sacred duties often intertwine with power games and the squeeze of ancient will. In that ancient era when the gods had not yet departed, the cold deities governing the Nordic night and winter did not like the gentle tranquility brought by Solitude, the Sandman. In the eyes of those high and mighty rulers, night should be a tool full of awe, cold, and punishment, and mortals should pass the long night trembling to maintain extreme adoration of the god's sacred power. The cold god of winter once descended before Ole, with fierce cold winds sweeping up snow from rooftops, causing Ole's thin silk tunic to flap loudly. The deity questioned Ole in a thunderous voice, demanding why he used illusory sweet dreams to weaken mortals' awe of the cold night and why he erased the pain and wakefulness deep in their souls. Facing the deity's overwhelming pressure, Solitude, the Sandman, did not flinch. He just stood quietly in the snow and wind, holding the sand pouch tightly in his embrace with both hands. His face appeared thin yet resolute under the cold moonlight, with no anger in his eyes, only a serenity that had seen through fate's vicissitudes. Ole bowed slightly and answered in a low, steady voice like the flow of a spring at deep night, "Respected ruler, night has already bestowed upon them enough severe cold. If even dreams are stripped away, human souls will fracture completely during the long winter. A collapsed soul, how can it offer true piety?" This silent confrontation lasted for a long time. Ole used his own restraint and dignified psychological tension to carve out a pure land of deep night where mortals could breathe freely within the god's cold order. But as a price, he also endured the god's curse. His body would forever maintain icy coldness, and both hands would never touch anything with true temperature, not even a faint hearth fire of the human world. During journeys so long that time blurred, what moved the world most about Solitude, the Sandman, were the two large umbrellas that never left his side. On the inside surface of one umbrella, the most beautiful patterns in the world were painted: blooming summer blossoms, streams flowing with honey, and elves with golden wings flying. The other umbrella, however, was simple, unadulterated pure white, or unfathomably deep black, without any pattern, as quiet as an uncarved tombstone. These two umbrellas represented Ole's deepest understanding of human fate and his own choice. Whenever he came before the beds of those pure and flawless children and mortals who worked hard during the day but were weary at night, he would, after sprinkling golden sand, gently unfurl that umbrella filled with beautiful patterns. The umbrella surface would rotate slowly over the sleeper's head, transforming those magnificent images into concrete dreams, projecting them deep into their dried hearts due to exhaustion, allowing them to gain the courage in their dreams to continue facing life upon waking in the morning. And when he encountered those who committed many evils, whose souls had already been corroded and fractured by greed and brutality, or those whose lives had reached their end and were about to return to nothingness, Ole would with solemn expression unfurl that empty pure white large umbrella. There were no dreams under that umbrella, no daylight clamor, nor hell's torment, only absolute, eternal silence. Evildoers could no longer commit evil in this extreme nothingness, only face their soul's desolation in the silent darkness, while the dying let go of their last attachment to the human world in this quietness, melting peacefully into eternal sleep. The world often misunderstood Ole because of that pure white large umbrella, believing him to be the incarnation of the cold, merciless Grim Reaper, even depicting him in some ancient ballads as a monster taking away mortals' consciousness. Ole heard those fearful ballads, but he never attempted to defend himself with a single word, because he knew deeply that absolute quietness is sometimes an ultimate mercy more healing than magnificent sweet dreams. History had a period when the ancient continent was shrouded by ceaseless wars and terrible plagues. That was human history's most stinging and darkest fateful moment, countless families amid the war's fire, and originally tranquil villages turned into charred ruins. In those days, Ole Lukoge, the Sandman's leather pouch became unprecedentedly heavy, because too many mortal bitter tears mixed within it. Nighttime hospitals and crude shelters were everywhere filled with wounded soldiers' groans and lost loved ones' despairing cries. Ole wore that aurora tunic stained with dust and, tirelessly shuttling between every bed with painful groans. In a dilapidated thatched cottage leaking wind from four sides, a young child who lost his mother was running a high fever, struggling painfully on the edge of clarity and, small hands grasping in the void, mouth constantly murmuring his mother's name. Ole walked slowly over, squatting down beside his bed, the god's pair of always icy cold hands trembling intensely at this moment. He knew that he could not violate fate's trajectory to revive the dead, nor could he use divine power to heal mortal bodily wounds. All he could do was grant a dream. Ole poured almost all golden sand from the leather pouch, holding these particles emitting faint warm light with both hands, gently blowing them towards the child's face. Then, he unfurled that most beautiful painted umbrella and, with all his divine power, conjured the image of that mother gently smiling on the umbrella surface. The child gradually stopped crying, his tense small face slowly relaxing under the golden sand's light, with a smidgen of sweet smile appearing at the corner of his mouth, finally returning in his dream to his mother's warm embrace. That night, Ole guarded bedside for a long, long time until dawn's faint light pierced through the distant black night. Then he dragged his near-collapsed body, vanishing silently in the morning frost and mist. When history's wheels roared into modern times, ancient myths gradually faded amid steam and steel's roar. Mortals moved into towering concrete high-rises, bright neon lights drove the city's black night completely away, and the world became unprecedentedly noisy and busy. People began to mock those ancient fairy tales about the Sandman, believing them merely absurd stories used in old times to coax children to sleep. Due to losing mortals' pure belief, Ole Lukoge, the Sandman's divine power inevitably went towards decline, his body becoming increasingly transparent, and the originally brilliant golden leather pouch gradually losing its former luster. But every late night at 2 o'clock, when those urban dwellers watch ceilings sighing in vacant rooms, hearts filled to the brim with daylight pressure and future confusion, Ole actually stands in that shadow of interwoven brightness and darkness at their bed head. He watches modern people's souls that are extreme and extreme anxious despite having enough to eat all day, compassion in his eyes just as it was 1,000 years ago on the Nordic wasteland seeing those mortals suffering from severe cold. He could no longer manifest a magnificent painted umbrella as in the past, but he would condense the remnant divine power into an invisible, warm and restrained psychological magnetic field, like late-night radio. He gently brushed dwellers' temples with icy cold fingers, smoothing those neurosignals jumping madly in the brain, quietly injecting images of natural, quiet, ancient forests into human exhausted subconsciousness. He was like a nameless craftsman silently mending the world's wounds and history's ruins, continuing to emit his final, restrained temperature in places invisible to everyone. As the story's epilogue slowly falls, those ancient wind and snow and modern clamor have completely gone far away in this tranquil atmosphere. Ole Lukoge, the Sandman, this lonely guardian running through fairy tales and myths, opposing wakefulness's torment with a lifetime, might at this moment be smilingly standing outside your window. Your eyes no longer need to seek that pouch of miraculous golden sand, it is currently, along with this soothing, low-pitched voiceover, like invisible starlight, melting smidgen by smidgen into your every stable and deep breath. That large umbrella filled with sweet dreams has quietly unfurled in the depths of your consciousness, sheltering against all external uneasiness, impulsiveness, and unfulfilled regrets. In this world, there is always some gentleness quietly existing in places you cannot see, always a deity willing to undertake an icy cold price, just to exchange for you a night of worry-free peace. Daytime of the past has completely ended, future matters do not need you to be anxious under night's shelter. Good night, may you, under Ol's eternal gentle gaze, take off all weariness and have an exceptionally sweet dream.